Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you back to the Kerbal space program. Today's mission, to land on the moon. What you see before you is the design that I'm going with for the moon lander. It's got a little bit more thrust on it than it does science. It's got a Science Junior, it's got a goo experiment, and of course it has our thermometer and barometer experiments. But it does have a few new pieces that I've recently unlocked from our tech tree, as a matter of fact. Just to give you guys a look at what we're dealing with right here, I'm going to show you what our tech tree looks like so far. So this is everything that I've unlocked up to this point. Recently I have gotten some new fuel systems that will give us a little bit more ability to control what we're doing. We have the barometer as we have before. I believe everything else I've covered, but if I haven't, then that's what's available on the list. Back to our current project. So using some of the new things from our technology tree, we can maximize our efficiency and perform a landing on the moon. For example, a very important new piece that we've obtained is this. It's called the external fuel duct. You'll notice that these fuel tanks that I have connected over to the sides of the main engine do not have thrusters underneath them. That is because I'm using these fuel ducts so that instead of these providing their own thrust, they put fuel inside of the main engine here. So when I burn fuel from the main thruster here, the fuel will first be expended from the sides, go into this canister. These three will run out, and then we'll still have a full tank here that this thruster can then burn on. Other than that, as I said before, we also have a new smaller thrust capability called an RCS. This is designed to allow us to make fine adjustments that'll be handy on the moon if we need to use them. This is a new ladder type that we've recently unlocked as well. It'll be easier to demonstrate once we get there. Basically, we click it and it unfolds, comes down to the bottom here. Because this is too tall for us to get back into after we perform an EVA, and unlike here on Kerbin, I can't simply recover myself if I fall out of my craft and can't get back in. Finally, relatively new, these lights that I was having difficulty finding use for earlier are being added onto this system here. These lights are going to shine on the surface of the moon, and that'll help us tell exactly when we need to land. The moon, as you may know, has no atmosphere. So unfortunately we cannot rely on parachutes to get us down, so we have to rely on our thrusting capabilities. So the key words of this mission are fuel. There isn't too much science packed into this, more or less the essentials. I plan on doing a couple of missions, which is why I plan to spread out the science a bit, and why I only have one Science Junior with me this time. Now, obviously saying we need a very powerful system to be able to launch and land this on the moon, and then have this be strong enough to get back. So, I would like to introduce to you the Lunar launch system. By the way, we can go to this folder over here called Sub-Assemblies. If we build anything, we can then drag it into the sub-assembly drop zone and save it, so that we don't have to rebuild it every time. The Lunar launch system is what I will be using. And it is quite a powerful system we have here. And again, it uses new pieces we haven't used before. And new techniques, too. By the way, this new piece that we have right here is fuel for the RCS boosters down here. This and this together will power the RCS. Unlike the normal fuel canisters, this is allowed to bleed through the decouplers here, so if we need it, we can use it. I don't believe we'll be in too dire straits, but it'll be handy to have. Going a little bit further down, we have these decouplers. I believe we used them earlier. If I haven't said this before, they are decouplers that are like the radial ones, except they have a bit more thrust, and they can push away heavier things. These right here, these are called separatrons. We are connecting these to these side engines right here, because like the boosters before, once we launch and these run out of fuel, we'll be able to dispose of them without having the risk of them crashing into our ship. These are not solid rocket boosters, but in fact these are their own large tanks, sort of like the one that we use for the main engine. We're using these fuel ducts right here in the same way that we're using it for the lander. Fuel will be drained from these ducts first, go into here. When these run out of fuel, we will drop them, and then this tank will be full and should put us in the correct trajectory that we need to put it in. Finally, one very big change, these clamps right here. Now, with a system this large, I wouldn't rely on their older method of putting small metal clamps down here. It might not be stable enough, but these will allow us to hold our ship a little bit higher in the air, and the thrust that we have should be able to compensate for gravity so that we don't come crashing down once we launch. Thus is the Armstrong lander. But there is also the risk of us not being able... There is a risk and a problem that I've been facing with recently, which is to say, I'm pretty confident that this system can get to the moon, but I'm not entirely sure how efficient it will be at getting us back to Kerbin. And that's because we've never tried to return from another surface. So, I've created a contingency plan. Let's take a look at that real quick. I call it the Lunar Lifeboat 1. The Lunar Lifeboat is a similar system to what we're using just now, except that it has a probe on top. It is carrying no science experiments, which will make it a lighter system. It is packed with only the essentials. In fact, I can probably show you the system real quick on the launch pad. My plan for the lifeboat device is that it is designed like the lander to approach the moon and land. The idea is that if we get stuck on the moon, we can land this device right next to where we got stranded, and because of our lighter load and fuel efficiency, it should get us closer to the target and be able to give us some extra fuel to escape. Once we land on the moon, of course, let's see, we're going to deploy our landers. The idea is that once this system goes underway, we would immediately dispose of any extra weight that we no longer need. For example, these side boosters would go away. We would also launch the satellite because we would no longer need it. It would be powered by the astronaut who would be in here. And then, well, that didn't end well at all, so we're going to pretend that never happened. But you get the idea. It would be the same sort of concept, except a bit less catastrophic. Actually, hold on. I want to make sure that the system works, because it would be embarrassing if we get all the way to the moon and then the contingency plan doesn't work either. So let's see. I'm going to throttle up all the way. Launch. I don't think we have the thrust capability with this rocket to move off of Kerbin, so I'm just going to shut that down. These side parts decouple. Our satellite would decouple. And then we would die a horrible death. Oh, there's our satellite coming back down. On the moon, there is less gravity, so the system should work a bit more properly there. We'll have to test it to find out, of course, and hopefully it won't be quite as catastrophic. I'm gonna get out of there so that we can pretend we never just killed somebody. Anyway, we are getting ready to launch, so I am going to go back to our, that was the the Armstrong lander, and prepare ourselves for liftoff. So I'm going to plop this on the launch pad, and we'll give it a shot going to the moon. This whole adventure going to the moon and back is going to take probably a couple videos or so, maybe 3, depending on how long this takes. Prior to launching, I'm going to show you something real quick. I'm assuming that you guys aren't going to want to watch me send my lifeboat mission over to the moon. So, as a contingency plan, and to save extra time, I've already taken the liberty and have sent 3 lifeboat missions to the moon. They are, of course, Luna Lifeboat 1, 2, and 3. As of right now, I expect them to have more fuel than my manned mission will, because it's carrying more science with it. As you can tell, there's nobody in this command pod, so when we have someone return, or when we land this to save someone, if we need to, they can climb into the command pod. So we have 3 systems on at the moon already set to go, so if we get stranded, we won't have to waste time sending another mission over here. And one more thing, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I'm going to return back to the mission reel here. I'm going to quickly select the Armstrong lander, because there was a piece that I added to it that I forgot to mention. We have a new device that we've connected to it called a strut. They are these structural metal items right here. If we were to not connect struts to the rockets, sort of like how we have the side boosters connected to the main booster, and we have the same system up here as well, if we did not have those, this launch system would be a lot less stable, and we would run the risk of it wobbling until the rocket would lose its trajectory, or worse, smash into itself and explode. Okay, so now we should have everything that we need to actually go. Looks like we have Bill Kerbin in charge of this particular mission. Well, it's okay. Bill has never had a chance to go on a mission before, so we will see how this goes in his case. To begin with, I am going to press the T key to stabilize ourselves. I am going to thrust all the way up, and then finally we are going to launch. So, 3, 2, 1, ignition! And those stabilizers down there make a very, very nice funk sound. It's very satisfying to hear that go off. Bill Kerbin looking a little bit nervous here. I don't think he's ever been to the moon either, but this will be a first step. A giant leap, if you will. Now you might have mentioned, you might have noticed rather, that our launching speed was actually very slow coming off the launch pad. We were only now we're only just barely getting to 100 meters per second. As we launch the system, because it is more powerful despite being more heavy, will gradually get faster and faster, and that should put us into orbit with time to spare. General rules that I've been using still apply here. Once we hit about 100, I'm in about 10 kilometers up, I'm going to start adjusting to the east. Nearly there. Almost. Wait for it. And we are good. So I am now going to slowly turn towards the eastern horizon. Just aiming a little bit more. Any second now, our boosters are going to completely run out of fuel. So we'll have to time ourselves correctly. Unlike before, we won't have to worry about thrust. So, I mean, we won't have to worry about rethrusting once we hit this point. We're going to quickly jettison our pieces. Our separators, separatrons, spiral them out of the way, so now they will gracefully tumble towards the ground and explode horribly. But now we should have all the thrust we need to put ourselves into an orbit. Our heavy payload. We are going I'm actually going to aim a little bit more towards the horizon now. I know that ordinarily we would do a 45-degree angle, but I believe if we aim towards the horizon a bit more, we'll have a bit more efficiency, and it won't take us long to do the second part of our maneuvers to put ourselves into a proper orbit. And again, we want to hit that magic number of 100 kilometers. When we do that, well, I believe you know the drill behind orbiting. I'm going to speed this up a tad. Nearly there. I'm going to give ourselves a little bit more of a horizontal movement to save us a little bit extra time, because after doing some experimenting, it turns out that I think if you aim towards the horizon near the latter half of your trajectory, you can actually save on some fuel efficiency. Let's see, we're getting close to that 100 magical number. Just about. And good. Okay, so I'm going to put ourselves back at normal speed. Before anything else, I'm quickly going to adjust our maneuver node. I'm going to zoom out. I have recently learned that the best way to get a circular orbit is to have the apoapsis and the periapsis go to both sides about halfway there. Just about. It might not be perfect, but it is what we are capable of doing. 97. So it's not a perfect circle, but it's close. Good enough for our purposes. We have about 1 minute and 26 seconds to put ourselves there, and as you can see, we have plenty of liquid fuel to perform that movement. We might actually even have enough to have it by the end of our maneuver as well. It's hard to say. We'll see how it turns out. I'm going to quick save just to be sure. And more or less for a mission this important, you want to quick save before you do any maneuver, because if it turns out that it fails, then you have that backup available to you. Okay, we are on the blue node. All we have to do is fire at the right moment, and we should put ourselves into the orbit that we want. So, we are getting there. I'm going to quick save a second time. Speed up time just a little bit. Okay, and thrust. So hopefully I'm actually wondering if we can make this, if we can actually get this last piece here to keep us into orbit, because something funny happens if we make it into orbit with our initial main thruster right here. We might actually pull it off. Let's see. I don't think we're going to, actually. I think we're going to come close. But we're just going to miss it. Let's see. And that'll do. Okay, so let's see. Yep, there goes our initial thruster. We are now in a stable orbit, so I can quick save, and I can show you what I mean by something funny happening. It may not have happened at that specific moment, and I'm pretty sure we are not going to get it to happen, but if we were already in an orbital trajectory and I dropped this, just like the satellite Sputnik that we released earlier, our debris would have stayed in orbit too. That doesn't appear to be happening in this case, but it's kind of a neat little thing that can happen. Let's see what trajectory it actually went on. This is more or less unnecessary, but I'm curious. So let's see where it went. That is the Armstrong debris right here. Yep, here's our piece, and there's our escaping lander that it's on its way into a proper orbit, but this isn't quite so lucky. It looks like this has a apoapsis of 105, But the problem is that it also has a periapsis of 34. That'll put it in the atmosphere and cause it to burn up over on this side. So the fate of this particular piece is not a pretty one. Granted, if you want... I mean, actually, we can't. We could fast forward, we could time skip, but because it still thinks we're throttled up here, it won't let us. So this is going to go on a very slow demise that no one will be able to see. Meanwhile, as our lander makes its way for the moon. Right, so let us return to our lander, because we have bigger fish to fry. The Armstrong lander is still in its stable orbit. As of right now, it's being piloted by Bill Kerbin. We still have plenty of fuel on this, actually. We have almost all the fuel in here that we need, and this system is already in orbit. Our original thruster got us as far as we needed to, and this might actually be enough to get us there and back. I'm not sure yet, but just to be sure, I'm going to quick save, because I want to do that before every move. What the heck's going on here? To try to get me to intersect. I'm so confused. Anyway, what we want to do is prepare ourselves for a maneuver, because we want to go to the moon, of course. So I'm gonna... Wow, that was way too much. I'm gonna pull that back and get us to a maneuver that'll put us at the moon. Aha, there we go. So I want to get us to about 30 kilometers to the surface. Between 30 and 20 is probably good. That's way too close. That would be a near crash landing. We don't have to worry about the moon's atmosphere dragging us, because it doesn't really have an atmosphere to speak of. This doesn't have to be perfect, mind you. This is just a general guideline that we can use. Okay, so we can adjust our orbit to compensate. It did say that we were going to get a little bit close, but if I keep an eye on our periapsis when we actually do the burn, that should be a little bit more forgiving. A boost to get us towards the moon takes about 2 minutes, and usually when we're transferring between objects, we want to half the time between, like, before the point of insert, like the node point and the, like, on both sides of it. We don't have an available time for the burn because I got greedy and wanted to see what would happen to our booster. But generally about a minute's about is how it goes. I am targeting something with my, Oh, I'm targeting Kerbin. That's kind of funny. Let's set that as a target instead. Oh, I see. So, we're going to get going pretty shortly. According to the timer, we need to do this in 3 minutes. So at about the 1 minute mark, or 1 minute 10 second mark, I will commit to the burn. And join our lifeboat friends over at the moon. Nearly there. Oh, I want to slow down now because we're going to boost any second now. I'm probably going to boost it at about 1 minute and 10 seconds because I did say 2 minutes, but it's more like 2:20 minutes depending on how you launch it. So I'm going to start now. I should have quick saved before I did it actually, but that's okay. Let's take a look outside because this is where most of our action is going to take place. I am going to zoom out here and keep an eye on our orbit as it arches this way. Actually, I realize that you can't see my mouse pointer. Well, it's going to go towards the green orbit line. As it does, the periapsis symbol right here will appear in yellow as it slowly arches from the right side over down to where our current periapsis mark is. As it does, just like last time, I'll want to use control to slowly ease down on the throttle. In fact, I have to pull up the nav ball here so that we can actually control it, because I believe if we don't have the nav ball, we won't be able to do that. I'm going to take a look at our resources window right here real quick so we can keep an eye on our fuel. About a minute of the way there. This is the burn that mostly concerns me when we're getting to the moon itself. I will have to admit that this is the part that might actually screw me up. And again, we do have lifeboats, so to me it's more important that we actually land on the moon, and then if we do get stranded, we can come up with a contingency to get off of it. I would love to be able to get off with the system we have right now, but landing is a higher imperative, and if we use too much fuel, then so be it. Oasis is approaching. Even if it feels like it's slow coming off here, the longer we thrust, the faster this will start to go. Okay, now I'm going to start to throttle down just so that we don't go too fast. Okay, easy, 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 easy. I'm going to keep an eye on this periapsis marker. Once it dips between 40 and 20, that'll be the time to stop our boost. I have my thrust down to a bare minimum so I can be precise with this. Okay. I will admit, this is not a game for impatient people. Getting close. I know that this is a little bit slow, but I just want to make sure that we get this. We might actually land right on the mark, too. So ideally as close to the ground as we can get. 20 would be the absolute lowest that I would personally permit to have it land at, personally. But between 20 and 30 is probably good. I might have been doing this a little bit too slowly, actually. I'm going to speed that up just a little bit. Oh no! Okay, it was actually coming back up. Well, whatever, we'll take it. Not exactly what we were planning for, but we can fix that when we arrive in orbit. Right, so whatever, I'm going to quick save, that's good enough for me. And then I'm going to get rid of our current node because it's no longer of any use to us. And we can now fast travel there. So let's do it the fancy way. And view our home planet Earth, Kerbin rather, I keep calling it Earth, slowly disappear from view. And the moon straight ahead. Okay, to speed things up, I'm going to go back to our orbital map here, wait until we enter our insertion point, when we arrive at the moon sphere of influence. When we do, I'm going to stop the warp and go down to a normal speed. Now, our periapsis is a bit high. I want to remedy that, so I'm going to click on the periapsis itself and pull on this marker right here that has an X on it. That is a retrograde burn that will put us close to the surface of the moon. Again, aiming for about between 30 and 20. That's way too close. That'll do. That is a 50-second burn. How am I doing on fuel right now? Let's see. I've had better. I'm a little bit worried, but then again, I've seen worse. I have seen worse. Okay, well, we'll quick save again, just to be sure. We can fast travel a bit, because we still have about 45 minutes to go until we arrive there. Okay, easy does it. Easy. Oh, actually, you know what? What I ought to do? I ought to position myself the proper way. There we go. Three, two, almost there. Oh, we're going into darkness. Okay, minus 50 seconds. Now, you may be a little bit concerned because we're in darkness right now, and while we're here, we're gradually going to lose power in the, in our command module, because we're not connected to the sun, or we don't face the sun right now, and our solar panels aren't picking up energy. But considering the speed of our orbits and the fact that we have a ton of battery packs, we should have everything we need to get to where we go without losing power. Now, if we landed on the dark side of the moon, admittedly, then we'd be in trouble. For reasons I'll explain once I stop having to focus on this maneuver. Actually, I can just say it. The moon, just like in real life, the moon is currently in what's called a tidal locked phase with the Earth. What that means is that the same side of the moon always faces us. That's why there's a near side and the dark side of the moon, or the far side of the moon. The idea is that since it takes the moon takes roughly a month to orbit the planet, it also means that per 1 month it has 1 day. So a day and a month on the moon are completely synchronized. What that means is that for half of a month, that side of the moon will be in darkness. So if we land on the dark side of the moon, we would quickly run out of power. And then we would either have to wait for half a month for us to be in power again before we could do anything, or in a more practical way, we can simply land on the right side of the moon and then leave before it gets too dark. When you're in orbit, that staying in darkness isn't really that big of a problem because your orbits are quick enough to compensate as long as you have a decent amount of battery packs on your system and nothing is draining your power too severely. Let's see, again we want to aim for about 30 or so down. Let's see, I'm going to keep an eye on our periapsis because that's the one goes the closest to the surface. I am actually going to let it drop there. Okay, good. So now we are in a comfortable lunar orbit, and we have joined our 3 lifeboats. That's lifeboat 1, 2, and 3. There we go. I wonder if we can actually see them from where we're currently orbiting. They would appear as markers on the window here. It appears not, though, but I bet we'll be seeing them because we've got 3 of them in orbit, and the moon is significantly smaller. Okay, so now that we are in orbit, all we really need to do is pick a place to land. But first, let's think. Now, we have a couple of options. I can either try to land this lander now, or if we wanted to, we could try landing one of the lifeboats first to see if we can get one of them and back to the planet safely as a test run. I might do that real quick, just because if we fail with the lifeboat missions, then we'll know that we can't necessarily get our... Well, actually, I feel like that might be a waste of time. Let me quick save first before I do anything. I'm just going to land our lander first. And by quick saving before we actually commit to the maneuvers, if we do get stranded, then we can pull ourselves out of the mess. Now, we have a couple of interesting spots that we can try to land on. There's one compelling spot right here. It's this big, giant crater where that Apoasis marker is located. I want to see if we can try to land us there. So, let's see. If I click a location here, I should be able to pull our retrograde maneuver button all the way down there, and if I do that, it should more or less give us a straight line. Because if we do a completely retrograde burn, then it will stop our forward momentum entirely, and then we'll simply plop down to the surface, where we should be able to commit to a soft landing. So, we will try to land this craft very soon, but considering how big of a maneuver that is, I believe we're going to give it a little bit more time, so we will catch you in the next episode, where we will attempt to land our craft on the surface of the moon. Until then, everyone, this is Hardwick. Stay tuned, and good night.